Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Equinoxe News Hour. Thank you for joining us in this edition of the Primetime Newscast. We're broadcasting from Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. Traditional rulers in the west region of Cameroon and mothers of traditional authorities in the northwest region rise up to say enough is enough. It is time to put an end to the killings, destruction, abduction, and other atrocities being committed in the 4-year-long armed conflict in the northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon. They are urging the government and other stakeholders to find a lasting solution to the crisis. And also in this newscast, we will talk about the verdict handed down by the Bonanjo Court of First Instance in the case of the 2 lawyers who were being tried for corruption and contempt of court. Two persons have died in another road accident here in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. The two were crushed down by a heavy-duty truck on the highway in the village neighborhood around the Douala International Airport. The truck transporting domestic gas is said to have been trying to avoid crushing a motorbike rider, and this led to the accident, which left 2 persons dead and 3 others severely injured around the Douala International Airport earlier today, and the corpses have been transported to the mortuary while the injured victims are now under medical attention. And of course, that accident occurred earlier today. Now to the west region of the Republic of Cameroon, where the traditional rulers in that part of the country have stood up to say that it is time to put an end to the atrocities in the northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon. They are also calling on the Yaoundé administration to solve not only the crisis but other socio-political, economic and health problems plaguing the country. Details in this report by Immaculate Fogwe.
Page document: Traditional rulers of the west region of Cameroon discuss about the plethora of problems plaguing the country. They looked at issues ranging from insecurity in the far north region provoked by the Boko Haram terrorist sect, that of the east region provoked by Seleka rebels, the health crisis caused by the coronavirus pandemic, which has partially crippled the economy, and finally, the socio-political crisis in the northwest and southwest regions. With regards to the ongoing Anglophone crisis, the custodians of culture described government's military option in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon as a failure. They went ahead to call on parliamentarians to bring up the crisis in the northwest and southwest regions on the agenda in parliament. They equally urged the state to hold another major national dialogue with the presence of civil mediators for a definitive return of peace and normalcy in the affected regions.
Mothers of funds in the northwest region hit the streets of the northwest regional capital, Bamenda, demanding for solutions to the Anglophone crisis. They are lamenting over the devastating consequences on human life and properties in those 2 regions, and the peaceful protest today in the town of Bamenda has been provoked, or was provoked, by the recent incidents in the town of Kumba and of course in Limbe, where some students were killed and others stripped naked and beaten by armed men, respectively in Kumba and in Limbe. And of course the other incidents that have been occurring in the northwest region, the kidnapping of teachers and students and other atrocities, and they are saying that it is high time all of these come to an end. Mustela reports.
The placards these women have in hand bear messages of happenings that cannot be said with their mouths.
Before they even go into elections, some serious thing will happen from Lago when they will keep picking them, plenty picking them, die. And then after that one, we see some terrible one again happen for Bamenda here, when they kill Wada, some woman Wada, where they just slaughter you like goats. After that one again, we see the one from Moyoka, when they just stop, the kill woman, they see the champion na grass. And then the worst one that come for picking them, when they enter for school, kill all picking them. My dear sisters, it be really some kind of thing where we don't even know how to talk. Say, what's happening begin they go? If you all and die go, what's up day?
They too have been victims of the armed conflict which has claimed the lives of at least 3,000 people, sending at least 500,000 out of their homes and communities. The Kumba massacre of October 24, 2020, the Ngarbo incident of February 14, 2020, are events still fresh in the minds of these women, and they have gathered here at the Grandstand Commercial Venue Bamenda to say never again.
Look at my sister, you don't even know the places that when deaths occur. And this time around, they occur right in the classroom. Oh God, this afternoon we have come here for an armed-free crusade. An armed-free crusade for peace.
Today, every sector has been affected by the armed conflict. Almost every family in the Northwest region has a bitter memory of the last 4 years.
So I feel bad. I get picking them ready to go to school, and now with na school fee, na this, na that. Oh, that one, I only really one. When sometimes so you reach to a crisis, why?
These Mafos of the Northwest region, accompanied by some female parliamentarians, also visited the Center for Disarmament, Demobilization and Reintegration of Ex-Fighters. They brought food items and toiletries, but the message is for they who are already here to encourage others drop their arms. On the streets of Bamenda, inhabitants think rather than marching on the streets, the female MPs can initiate talks aimed at ending the conflict at the level of the glass house.
Bostella reporting there from the Northwest Regional Chief Town, Bamenda. Residents of Chief Street, Limbe quarters and Ndongo quarters in the Boya have staged a peaceful protest march in the town, and of course they were demanding for adequate electric energy supply. On the messages brandished by the protesters, they indicate that there is electric energy supply in their neighborhoods not stable. Some of them say that it is enough. They don't want to continue having electricity supply just for an hour in 24 hours. This is just an illustration of the inadequate or the unstable nature of electric energy supply in those parts of the town of Boya. This is not, however, the first time that women, men, and young people are hitting the streets protesting against this very problem of inadequate electric energy supply. And the residents of the different neighborhoods say they have been for 2 months without electric energy supply, constant electric energy supply. And at the divisional officer's office, the director of the company supplying electricity told the people that solutions are being provided to their plight. And some inhabitants of Checkpoint in the Boya have seen the houses demolished by the Boya Council, and the demolition exercise occurring, according to the mayor of Boya, Barrister David Namani, is to decongest that area. They constructed some of the houses on the wrong places or without respecting the distance they are supposed to respect as far as the roads are concerned. His reports, Manjikan Gabriel.
It was an unusual day in Buea, chief town of the Southwest region. Bulldozers of the Buea Council were active destroying houses that have been poorly constructed under the watchful eyes of the helpless population.
The land use map for Buea.
The sitting mayor says the land use map isn't respected, reasons for the traffic congestion. He warns that every person coming into town should be able to move around. We have done a lot of sensitization before this destruction.
Nobody will be angry with us because we don't desensitize them for so long.
The houses being destroyed, according to council officials, didn't respect the norms of construction put in place. Due to the demolition exercise, many were left stranded.
I don't know where to go sleep because I feel sleep.
I don't know where to sleep anymore. We sat in the morning and surprisingly, we saw a bulldozer coming to destroy our houses. Others who were hiding in Buea due to the crisis in the two English-speaking regions are also touched. It was this morning that the bulldozer destroyed my place. I don't even know where I will move to. The demolition exercise, according to council sources, is to enable the opening of a new road that will help decongest Buea, which is becoming tight for the past months.
Thank you, Smanjik and Gabriel, for that report. Now we are moving down to the opacity of Limbe, where managers, authorities of Cameroon Telecommunications, CAMTEL, are still investigating the cables stolen in one of its branch offices. And there are indications, according to our correspondents, that if the cables stolen are not quickly replaced, internet connection may be adversely affected in that part of the country. Details with Davidson Maimo.
Officials of the Cameroon Telecommunication Company CAMTEL are still to come to terms how a substantial length of a vital cable has been stolen from the Batoke optical fiber station in Limbe, despite the presence of security at the station.
How can somebody come here? There is only one military person. The man takes time not only to cut the cable, because it takes time the way the thing was tight, or to remove all this camera like that and remove the cable like that.
The cable was going to this generator.
Yeah, this is the cable thing.
Section the generator, and the generator was left on this side. So every light was off, the generator will not
take off.
An investigation to track down the perpetrators has been ordered. We are told the cables that link the automatic powering of the station, if not replaced on time, internet coverage during the upcoming African Championship CHAN might be greatly affected, especially in Limbe.
Okay, from now we wrote to head office to make sure that the cable is replaced. Now the feedback I got was that necessary measures are being taken and maybe the market was launched already, so we are waiting.
The Director General, Judith Achidi, visited the CHAN Accreditation and Communication Center at the Limbe City Council Down Beach, the Limbe Omispo Stadium and the training stadiums, where optical fiber connection is to be installed to provide high-speed internet coverage. The optical fiber station in Batoke, baptized as a West Africa Cable System Works, cost the government of Cameroon 14 billion CFA francs to be installed and went operational in 2014.
From Batoke in the southwest region of Cameroon to Tourage, a village in the east region of the country where several persons narrowly escaped death after a ferry sank. Details in this report compiled by Charles Sekome.
Where people cross the river Lom between Canton Lai and Iyaiwe. We are in Turake, 15 kilometers from Betare Oya in the east region of Cameroon. We witnessed from a distance a ferry transporting merchandise for the Buli village, which is sinking. This image is being filmed by a trader. On the river banks, there is panic, consternation, and at the same time, people spontaneously mobilizing themselves to the rescue of the people aboard the ferry. By canoes and just by swimming, the villagers are determined to save the lives of the people aboard. Suddenly, the ferry begins to sink faster than expected because of the weight of the 6 motorcycles, 2 trucks, and many passengers aboard. One of the trucks on the ferry is transporting fuel for many forestry companies in the zone. 10 minutes later, the victims are brought to safety by the river banks. According to witnesses, the ferry, which had a lot of weight on it, lost its balance. Even the sailors and the ferry captain couldn't save the situation. While waiting for a bridge to be constructed on the Lom River in Turake, efforts are being made to pull out the ferry from the river. At the moment, the Lom River is being polluted by the loss of fuel which the truck was transporting aboard the ferry, which sunk.
Drivers, loaders and members of the Transporters Trade Union have staged a protest against threats by a municipal council agent. He will send away loaders. The municipal council agent threatened to send away the loaders and frustrate drivers who oppose his decision in the Edea Motor Park. And the promise came at a time when the lawyers, or better still the drivers, loaders, and the syndicate or trade unionists had been facing several difficulties in carrying on with their daily activities. Equinoxe reports.
Drivers and loaders in the Edea Motor Park in the Senegal Maritime Division of the Littoral region agitating against activities of a municipal council agent, the court intruder. The set agent of the Edea City Council claims to be the one to manage their activities in this park. He imposes on them new rules and regulations to govern every function in the park upon instruction of the city mayor. He compels them to give him a token from the profits they get from loading here. With their refusal, the said individual promised sending them out of the park and employing new loaders who will give him what he requests.
We don't start this work since.
Not even the presidents of these loaders or members of the transporters syndicate are ready to allow the man who masters nothing in transport to toy with them. He cannot control us. We belong in a legalized union. We cannot accept that nonsense. You can't impose employees to an employer. These loaders work under us and our trade union, since NUCAM is the only legalized transporters trade union in this motor park.
C'est le seul syndicat qui répond aux normes syndicales de transport.
We are disappointed. How can we be compelled to work and share same advantages with inferior trade unions? They don't even have vehicles. We won't tolerate any form of manipulation. We await the decision of the city mayor. In reaction to this protest, the city mayor settled on some resolutions after a meeting with the various syndicates, drivers and loaders.
Nous aurons une rotation au niveau de l'émission.
Every week, we are going to change the format of the transport slips for security purpose. The second point to note is that we are going to have to reduce the number of baggage handlers to have better control and visibility of our activities. The choices and decisions will be made by the urban community, as we will be needing baggage handlers who will work in accord with the drivers.
Une volonté de travailler en concertation avec les chauffeurs, les patrons.
These resolutions aim at ensuring calm reigns in the motor park. The city mayor also pledged to work towards creation of a brigade that will control circulation on the National Roads number 3 under the supervision of the city council in partnership with transporters, trade unions, drivers and loaders.
Back to the crisis-hit northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon. Members and officials of the ruling Cameroon People's Democratic Movement (CPD) and political party say the regional elections of December 6, 2020 will restore peace and normalcy with the implementation of the new decentralization code, including the special status for the northwest and southwest regions of the country. They were speaking during the launch of campaigns in that part of the country. Davidson Maimo has more.
As recommended during the national dialogue for mechanism to speed up decentralization process in Cameroon to be put in place, the December 6 rendezvous for the election of regional councillors and regional house of chiefs is already at the corner, following the launching of campaigns nationwide. FACO division with an electoral college of 220 councillors, all from the ruling CPDM party. The party is leaving no stone unturned.
Limbe and all of FACO is under the vent of the CPDM.
Launching campaigns in Limbe, headquarters of FACO division, campaign team leader Professor Nalova Liunga called on all FACO candidates and electors to bury their differences and have a common goal.
Do we want a victory that will be riddled with no votes, which may be misinterpreted by our detractors to insinuate that we are protesting against ourselves and our own party, or that we don't know what we want?
To Senator Mbelamoki Charles, it is time once again for the people of FACO division to exhibit their loyalty to the party.
I have no doubts in my mind that the expectations of the people are going to be met with an outstanding result, a result that is going to reflect the fidelity, the loyalty, and of course the commitment and dedication of the people of FACO division to the cause of peace and the realization of a speedy decentralization process in this country.
However, Chief Ndike, one of the three chiefs to represent FACO division in the regional house of chiefs, says, though chiefs are auxiliary to the administration, their presence in the house will be for the interest of all, irrespective of their political and religious affiliations.
That the desire of the people of the Anglophone region today is in relation with the special status which is attached. We have to solicit ways to ensure that the Anglophone crisis gets to an end, which is one of the most serious issues we have at hand today.
Everything being equal, the CPDM party is expected to have an overwhelming victory.
The two lawyers whose trial at the Bonanjo Court of First Instance led to a violent confrontation between lawyers and security and defense forces have been slammed a 1-year suspended jail term for 5 years. This is the verdict handed down today by the Bonanjo Court of First Instance. We shall be bringing to you greater details on this in our subsequent news editions. And this breaking news just streaming in: football legend Diego Maradona dies at the age of 60. He remains the only captain to have taken Argentina to a World Cup win, and he played with Boca Juniors, Napoli and Barcelona football clubs. Coming up in Talking Point, we shall talk about gender-based violence in line with the International Day for the Eradication of Violence Against Women. Thank you for staying with us. Our guest today is a gender activist, Quinta Yuchi. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me once again, Mr. Babila Jonathan.
Today is the International Day of the Elimination of Violence Against Women. This fight against violence perpetrated on women by men and other women has been going on for years. And the problem seems to be gaining grounds in Cameroon, despite the struggle by gender activists, by other stakeholders to reduce or curb violence. Why not eliminate violence against women? But the problem is persisting and even growing in intensity. What's your analysis of the situation?
Thank you so much once again for having me on your platform. First of all, I want to create a platform. I want to establish an understanding. People need to understand what's the difference between gender-based violence and violence against women and girls. Today we are commemorating the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women and Girls, but it is also the beginning of the 16 days activism against gender-based violence.
What's the difference between the two?
Yes,
Gender-based violence.
That's why I want us to establish that first, because otherwise when I go ahead to answer your question, people can be confused. Okay, so in 1991, this organization called the Center for Women Global Leadership in New Jersey, they began what is called the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Now, the creation of the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women and Girls was only established in 1993, which is 2 years afterwards. Now, the difference is that while gender-based violence is the violence that is perpetrated against somebody because of their gender, violence against women and girls is that violence that is perpetrated against women and girls directly. So, like you said earlier,
so it's not
yes,
gender goes the other two ways.
Yes.
That is, can be man,
yes,
or woman.
yes,
but
exactly.
this violence against women and girls is specific.
Exactly.
All right.
Right. So, to answer your question, now I want to say that this day is a very important day for our community, for us as Cameroonians, especially because we are faced with two humanitarian crises. We are faced with the current Anglophone conflict, and we are also faced with the current health pandemic, the COVID-19. So in such period, or I can say that these are all contributing factors to the exacerbation of gender-based violence and violence against women and girls.
Mm-hmm. All right, so what's the degree of the problem in our society in Cameroon today?
Okay, so originally our societal norms, our cultural norms, so many other factors contributed to the manifestation of different forms of gender-based violence. Okay, now the difference is that this has been worsened by the ongoing COVID-19 and the Anglophone,
the security crisis in the northwest and southwest.
Exactly. So you realize that when you look at the helplines that have been set in place in our communities, the statistics show that it is 5 times more than they used to receive a call for help about 4 years ago when the crisis broke out. So it means that it has worsened to, say, for example, maybe by 75%.
Because of the crisis and the coronavirus. But concerning the crisis in particular, this is in the northwest and in the southwest region, but also in the far north region with the Boko Haram, with young girls who have been used like suicide bombers and things like that, but also in the east region with the rebels. There are issues of rape there, and so on.
Right. So rape is a terrible, it's a social pandemic, I can say, in global communities, but it's worsening in our communities. Every now and then you hear about rape cases. In Douala, it is prevailing. In the southwest, in the northwest, and all over Cameroon, in Yaoundé, rape cases are just prevailing. There are sometimes cases where rape is not being spoken about. It's still in the stage of they're still hiding. They don't want to talk about it. They look at it as a taboo to talk about it. So in our country, faced with these two humanitarian crises, like I said, it is actually, prevailing. It is getting worse. It is exacerbating, and there is a call for concern that needs to be addressed. And we're talking about gender-based violence, and it's manifesting in the form of rape, which is a serious social pandemic.
What accounts for the fact that, as you indicated, people are still silent? Many people keep their mouths shut. Even when they witness rape happening, or when somebody is raped, some of the victims themselves, they don't speak out.
When you ask me such a question, I feel like I should just undress in front of the TV. There are so many reasons. Number one, you talk about lack of proper education. Do you know that some people still think that rape is the fault, rape is caused by the fault of the victim? Or in other words, what am I trying to say? They still think
the victims
that
are responsible.
Yes, are responsible, are to be blamed. And number one. Number two, stereotypes. We grew up in communities where our parents think that when your child is assaulted sexually, they should hide it. You understand? So it's still very present in our communities. This practice is still very active in our communities, and this is something that needs to be eradicated. And this can only be done by, educating, proper education. Because how do you continue to live in societies where people still think that a girl who is raped, it is her fault and she has to be blamed, and you find situations where their parents begin to hide it so that the child is not looked upon as a bad child and things like that. I mean, even in communities where I have been to recently, raising awareness about gender-based violence, I have asked questions about a woman's dressing, if that can cause her to be raped. And the popular opinion that I got was that, yes, it is the fault of a woman if she is dressed improperly for her to be raped. So that is a very serious issue. It's a very terrible stereotype. It's a mentality that needs to be changed in our communities.
But can dressing justify rape?
No, of course not. And this is, before let me just say this. I'm just so bubbled up in my spirit. Nobody's dressing can cause somebody, a perpetrator, to rape them. Rape is caused by the abuse of power that person has, physical, psychological power over that other person, and targets that person when that person refuses to give them consent to have any sexual activity with them. So rape occurs because a person was forced into a sexual activity that was not wanted by the other party. Number one. Number two, it is a disrespect of the right of the party that was perpetrated upon.
The victim.
Yeah. So if it is my right to choose who I want to have any sexual activity with, so that has to be respected. It's not about the dressing. If it was about the dressing, and this is what I tell community members, if it was about the dressing, you would address it with the forces of law and order. You don't take into your hands the right, or you don't take into your hands like a responsibility for you to discipline somebody by raping them because they were poorly dressed. Rape is a criminal act, and it remains punishable by law.
But let me get this clearly. Are you saying that the fact that somebody dresses poorly, a woman, a young girl, exposing parts of her body, are they not elements that can create an enabling environment for?
And that's the problem that we have in our communities, in our societies, because we have grown up in societies where rape had been misunderstood, or there's this misconception about rape, that it is about, that it sometimes it's not totally about the dressing, but they put a level of responsibility on the victim or the survivor, blaming them for either dressing in a way that will seduce somebody. Now, what they practice, the standard is that person's dressing can never ever give
cannot
power.
Justify.
No, it can never justify. So what we are saying is that if, for example, you go to the north and you find a woman who is dressed head to toe, and that person is still raped, is it because that person was exposing, is it because of any level of indecency? No, it's totally, absolutely as a result of the abuse of power. The person saw that they had the power to be able to force this other person into unlawful sexual activity. Number one, that's rape. Number two, the total and absolute denial of that other person to exercise their right to whosoever they want to have a sexual activity with. So it is a crucial need in our community, Mr. Babila, I should say, that we need to change our mentalities. The mindset of people in our communities are just, like, oh, it's because she was poorly dressed, it's because she had all these long nails, she had all these eyelashes, she was seduced, or she was dressed seductively and things like that. She can dress all she wants seductively. It is still her choice to decide who she wants to get a sexual activity with. And until she gives you that permission, if you take it by force, it's rape.
There is nothing that can justify.
There is nothing. It's a problem of mentality.
There is another issue of men raping their wives.
Yes, it is said that, and that's called marita rape. It is said that if you are married to a woman is married to a man, both of you need to give consent to any sexual activity. As human rights activists, that's what we practice. You have to give consent to any sexual activity. And so if a woman does not give consent,
agrees to
and the husband forces her into a sexual activity, she can report the husband as having raped her.
So the husband or the wife should agree, because it's a two-way thing. Also, some people are now asking, but what about the men who are being
what about
the men who are being forced to have sexual intercourse?
Okay, the first part of it, let's talk about it. Okay, so if a woman does not give the husband, or a wife does not give the husband consent to have sexual activity, and the husband forces her into sexual activity, that's called marital rape, and is punishable by law due to the human rights standard, the human rights practices, principles of human rights. Now, for the reverse, if a woman, I don't know to what extent a woman can force a man to have sexual intercourse with her, but people, ask the question if a man can be raped. But the fact of it is that the Cameroonian law does not, as of now, does not state that a woman can rape a man. I'm not saying that we understand that there are cases where women can cause criminal sexual activities, but they will not be considered as rape. They will be considered as something else.
All right.
Yes.
And we are running out of our time. Quickly, how to put an end to this? There are two aspects that have been highlighted often. Education. You talked about education.
Yeah.
Now the laws.
Yeah, we need to raise a lot of awareness about the truth about gender-based violence, about violence against women and girls. And also, we need to enforce laws that will protect women, protect girls from gender-based violence, protect, other gender from gender-based violence, but also to ensure that perpetrators are being brought to justice, because without the enactment, without the enforcement of laws, the system, rape will remain prevailing in our communities.
Thank you, Quinta Yuchi. Thank you. You're a gender activist. And
it's rather unfortunate that the time is too short. We were only able to talk a little bit about rape, but just a little awareness is better than nothing.
Of course, we'll have other opportunities to talk about this in greater details. Thank you so much, Quinta, for coming, and we wrap up with this message. Men, don't force your wife to have sexual intercourse with you. That is rape. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today.